demonstration we're going to give today is going to be hands-on on the computer. So I apologize, you don't get whiplash when you go from the screen to back here. So hopefully you'll be patient. My name is Brent Lambert. I'm from a company called Praxis, which is a spin-off of Utah State University. I work that David White did. What we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about the eduCommons platform and how it helps you do your OER. But we're going to broaden out and we're going to talk about things that you should be thinking about when you're doing OER and how the platform that you use or the choices that you make in that platform can shape or control or can make or break the success or the quality of that OER as you build it. So, tell you a little bit about who I am. I'm the primary developer behind eduCommons. I was tasked by David Wiley to build the software team to build the software. Well, when David Wiley shifted from Utah State to BYU, we split off and made a company around that, providing services and support around that. This is a project that was funded by the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation and supported by the OpenCourseWare Consortium. Okay, so let's talk about what is eduCommons. Who here knows what is familiar with eduCommons? Okay, I see a couple of hands. Okay, eduCommons, in its first, early incarnations, was an OpenCourseWare platform, a content management system for doing OpenCourseWare. Very similar to, what MIT does with their OpenCourseWare, except that this is a general platform that any university or institution can pick up and use. It's organized in such a way to be able to organize your content in things like departments and courses. So it's great for higher education, it's great for K-12, and it's flexible enough that it can be multi-institutional, or it can be down to an individual part or a section or division within an institution. And like I mentioned, eduCommons is used for OpenCourseWare, but it's powerful enough to be able to do more than that. Okay, so let's look at this for a minute. Examples. Well, this is what the platform looks like. This is Notre Dame's OpenCourseWare project. You can see they have their departments listed on the side. This is running on the eduCommons platform. Just really quickly, here's one from the University of Madrid in Spain. Again, doing OpenCourseWare. Here's another group of people. This is a partnership between Yale and MIT doing robotics. This is not OpenCourseWare, but this is course materials used within the robotics community to be able to share their content materials. So let's just talk about content and openness. One of the things we understand from the point of view of building eduCommons is content is only a part of the open educational process. It's an important part, but it's only a part because what you have is you have all the learning interaction, the socialness, the professors, the students, the grades. You have all that other stuff that goes around your content. When we built eduCommons, we built it with the idea that this would be a piece in your infrastructure. It wouldn't be the whole entire infrastructure. Now, this is kind of a different idea to a lot of the packages and platforms you see out there because, a lot of the idea is that we want to be the one-stop place where you build everything. And the problem with that is that it ends up being the one-stop straitjacket that makes you build it in the way that you want them to build it. When we build eduCommons, we purposely left these things out, not because they're not important, but because we wanted you to have the flexibility, once you got your content up and running, to be able to run with it and do what you want. eduCommons is a platform that's been around for a long time. And because we avoided trying to build all this stuff into it, then we've managed to keep eduCommons still highly relevant, but also very, very flexible. Okay, so content is typically your starting place. I mean, you've got to put something out there in order to start a conversation with somebody. If you're MIT, then you have a reputation coming about it. If you're a community college or something like that, you need something more. You need a draw. You need something to be able to bring people in and show what it is you do, what you're passionate about, what what you teach, what the value of that will be. Putting up your content is a very important part of that. Okay, also give your institution a stake in the ground when you start to participate in open education resources. Okay, now why? The question is, why would you use eduCommons? Well, you know, some of the reasons are when you put your content up, you want to be able to make sure that you see them in search engines. You want to make sure that people can subscribe to them. You want to make sure that you have some sort of semantic web capability, so that machines that come and search your site can understand what it is they're looking at. You want to be able to manage your content. You know, once you start putting that content up, and especially after you get past the first few courses or something like that, it becomes exponentially harder to manage that content. You want a platform that will help you do that. Organizing your content team. Okay, so you might have people on your team that are responsible for building content. You might have somebody who's a stakeholder in the project who's responsible for, once that content is published, you want to manage things like copyright and stuff like that. You need a platform that can support that. You want to make your content visible, make it organized, and have standard views and navigation. Make sure that everything is in the same place. When your end users come to the site, you want them to be able to narrow down specifically where they want to go very, very quickly. In today's day and age, when you have all sorts of distractions out there, you want to make sure that your end users are getting to the content very, very quickly. This is what eduCommons is good at. Now, you want to make the content that is in your platform more reusable. The last presentation talked a little bit about some of these ideas of sharing your content. Well, this is a platform that will do exactly just that. We're going to get into that in a little more detail. But first of all, I want to take a step back. Take a step back and let's think about this process of putting your content up. How many of you in this room are involved in publishing open educational resources? Okay, some of you are, some of you aren't. I want you to imagine, for instance, that you were going to publish some open educational resources, and think about some of the things that you would have to think about in order to be able to do that. Some of those things might be, is your platform open source? Of course, we want to be able to take advantage, the same technical advantage to our platform that we have with making our content open, right? Okay. You might think about, how are the search engines going to find my content? How are we going to get people coming to the site? You might think about accessibility. Okay, what happens when people are using screen readers because they're blind, or they have something that keeps them from reading your site in a normal way. And you're going to think about all the different alternative browsers and devices that we have today. You think about, how am I going to import, export content into it? Things like IMS Common Cartridge, can I support that? RSS feeds, LTI support, HTML, CSS, PDF, and it keeps on going on, and oh no, look, there's so many different things we have to think about. Now we're stuck in the mud. Our project's stuck in the mud because we can't figure out how on earth we're going to support all of this. Okay. Or there's an alternative strategy, and this one is so much easier. So much easier, but I like to call it a bit of ignorance is bliss combined with, oh look, a squirrel. The point I'm trying to make here is that oftentimes when we're thinking of OER, we might be blind at thinking about just a very specific part of the OER. Does this work on my iPad? And will also work in the browser. That's an important part of OER, but there is so much more to running your OER that you need to be thinking about than just that one little item. So I'm going to talk a bit about content platform deficiencies. Now, I'm not here to bash other platforms. I'm talking about specifically in the OER category. We've still got our OER heads on. We're thinking about, we've got to build this OER site. How are we going to do it? Well, we need to be aware of things like, I call it feature vision. Think about tunnel vision, except for features, right? Okay, so you might be thinking of building a platform, and you might be thinking, oh, I have open textbooks, I have lecture notes, I have quizzes and exams and stuff like this. I need a platform that does all that, but if you spend too much time thinking in one particular category of how you're going to do that, you're going to do it at the cost of all the others, which is, what happens is you choose a platform that's missing key functionality to making your content, your OER repository, high quality. Okay? Let's talk about appropriateness, okay? There's this idea of, oh yeah, we're within our institution, they have an LMS. Why don't we just build the course in there? Everybody's going to use it. Well, there's problems with that. The problems are you're in a locked room. The only people who are going to see your content are people who have already bought into your system and are already taking the course. And once that's done, where does the content go? It might get reused, it might not. So we need something that lives outside of the LMS that can make this open educational repository much more visible and much more stable. And then I'm going to talk about this idea of unnecessarily difficult to use. When you're stuck in feature vision, what tends to happen is the platform you're using is very, very good at that one feature. But sometimes it's the cost of being very, very poor at all the other features. And if you've made this decision, if you've gone down the road a little bit, you don't learn this until you come across one of these other things. When somebody contacts you and says, oh, I have a professor teaching, I don't know, economics. And he's been doing this for 20 years, he has tickets, he has this static website that has everything on it. Can we stick it in our platform? The question is, if you haven't thought about how you're going to do that, how you can solve that use case up front, then it can be very, very difficult when you get to that road. Okay, so what eduCommons is it's a platform that balances all these different features, all these different things and ideas that you need to be thinking about. It balances them all out into a common platform and allows you to be able to focus on building your content and be supported by all these other technologies. It's based on OER best practices. eduCommons has a long history of working with OpenCourseWare and working in the OpenCourseWare community to distill out the very best practices that you should be thinking about when you're building OER. eduCommons is much defined by what it's not as by what it is, because if it's not a best practice, OER practice, if it's not something that's important to do in OER, then we'll take it out of eduCommons. And we've introduced some features that ended up being less important, and we have actually removed those and focused on the ones that support the best practices. eduCommons is a mature platform. It's been around for a decade or longer, and it's seen several releases. It's a project that's lived on past its funding cycle. It's a project that's in use all around the world by lots of different universities. And also, it's purpose-built with the idea of OER in mind. This is important because a lot of the platforms out there are focused on a technology or on a tool or a way of doing things. eduCommons is really focused on the idea of OER. To the point where we want users to be wowed by the content in your site, not by the platform technology. This is important because, in today's day and age, the technologies are coming out, bam, 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 just like that. What you don't want to happen is to have your OER tied so specifically to a particular technology that you end up making your content irrelevant before its time, before it's sell by date. This also represents a kind of idea that's different to a lot of the platforms that are out there, because a lot of platforms are very much focused on the technology, and the content is something that you just add to it, whereas eduCommons is totally focused on making your content as visible as possible. So, some things that we think about and some things you should probably think about too when you're building your OER. Can you easily import existing content? Can you export your content? These are questions that have been traditionally very, very difficult to do in different platforms. And a lot of the platforms, especially the proprietary ones, aren't upfront about what the capabilities are. And it takes quite a bit of research to be able to understand them. Okay, so let's talk a bit about what eduCommons supports. Well, we support standard web formats. And when I say standard web formats, I'm not just saying that eduCommons is built using standard web formats, which it is, but I'm saying eduCommons supports importing content that is built in standard web formats. So we're not here, eduCommons is not a tool to force you into a particular way of doing things. It is there to take the content that you already have in the format that it already exists and be able to move it into your eduCommons environment and take advantage of all the extra features and functionality that eduCommons gives it. Okay, you can do things like upload and download content. If you have a static website, let's go back to our professor in economics, we can take a static website, we can zip it up into a big zip file, and with a couple pushes of buttons, it can sit there and be in eduCommons. And live in eduCommons just like it would live in a static website. Okay, we do content import and export using IMS standards. In the last presentation, they talked about, well, how do we marry all these things together? This is one of the ways that we do it. We supported the IMS standards, we supported them very early on in eduCommons, and they've been a big part of what eduCommons is all about. Now, one of the things that is important is once you get your content into eduCommons, we want to be able to take advantage of things that you can do with it directly within, within your website. So imagine your OER now, you can put a document inside of your OER, and based on the format of your document, you can now turn it into a slideshow, and some third-party person can come and give that slideshow directly in their class right off of the eduCommons site. Thinking about raw content views for people who want to come and reuse and remix it, what we can do is separate things like the navigation, the Chrome, all around the content from the content itself so that it's easily reusable. And we're also going to talk about advanced support for content reuse and LTI. I'll talk a little bit more about that later at the end of the presentation. Okay, we're building our OER. What about copyright? Can you build OER without thinking about copyright? Well, it's probably first and foremost on your minds. You've got to think about that because sooner or later, the copyright police are going to come knocking at your door. So what does eduCommons support in the way of copyright? Well, it supports per content and bulk licensing. These are two key pieces because imagine now you're uploading your professor's economics course and he has 2,000 objects in there. You don't want to spend all of your time clicking on every single object and saying what license it has. So you want to be able to bulk license the whole entire course. But as you're bulk licensing your whole entire course, you realize that there's an asset in there, maybe an image or something like that, that's public domain. It's a different license to everything else. What you want to do is be able to narrow in and focus on that one individual content object and give it a unique license without having to affect all the others. eduCommons does both of these things. It provides tools to make complying with the licenses easy. And what I mean by this is, I mean that you have a third-party person coming to your site. Now, not only do they see the Creative Commons license, but there's a button they can click on that will give them a way to be able to reference those materials that are in conformance with the copyright license. The licenses in eduCommons are clearly defined and located in a standard place. We move the licenses into the content rather than on the bottom of the website, because what does it mean when you have a copyright on the bottom of the website? Is that a copyright across the whole entire website? Is that a copyright for this particular object? Is it for this image? eduCommons handles these kinds of issues for you without you even having to think about it. Okay, then talk things about internationalization. It's increasingly important that we make that when we build our content, we may be building it in a platform that is for different countries or that needs different language requirements. eduCommons here, as you can see, supports the ability to both internationalize the Chrome, the outside controls in the content, but also the content itself. Okay, so what we're really saying here is eduCommons is designed to manage all these things and more for you so you can focus on your content, which is what you were trying to do in the first place, right? When you're building an OER, you're trying to build content, right? The very best content you can. Okay, So let me tell you a little bit about InPraxis. InPraxis is a company that we spun off. What do we do? What's our business model? Well, we're an open source company. And when I say open source, I mean we're totally open source. All of the tools we use are open source. All the tools we build are open source. We participate in open source communities. And the tools we build in eduCommons are actually being shared and used in other platforms and other websites around the world. We do customization of the eduCommons platform and also customization of other platforms that you are using. If you're integrating into Canvas or something like that, we can do that kind of work. We do development. We can build new projects and stuff based on the technologies that we've already used in eduCommons. And we do technical support and system administration. And we do this because your OER project, you're focused on building your content. You may not be able to afford a full-time system administrator. You're not, you don't have somebody who can keep your site up 24/7. That's what we're focused on doing that. And of course, we have our own cloud hosting environment that hosts our eduCommons. We also do dedicated hosting. If you want to host at your location, but have remote support, then we can do that too. Now, enough already. Let's see eduCommons in action. I'm just going to do a very brief. Here's eduCommons itself. What I'm going to do is we're logged in here. I'm going to show you just a couple things here. I don't have time to show you a lot, but what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and build a course. I just want you to see how much this scaffolds you in doing it. So what we're going to do is build something in computer science. Maybe we'll call it processing, and that's going to be, okay, now I have options here to be able to import content when I build this course, or I can just let it go. Notice here I also have templates. These are predefined templates that will load into my course as I build it. Okay. If I hit submit, you'll see now I'm giving a course. This course has a syllabus. It's all scaffolded with me. I can come in here and put in my details. I have a course schedule. So, and these templates are customizable to your OER. You can build those in. Now, I don't, if you're more, there's, 25 minutes is hard to show you everything that eduCommons does. If you're interested in this, please talk to me later. But there's one other thing that I need to tell you about. What's the latest, greatest features in eduCommons? Well, I'm glad you asked because we have a new release, and within this release we have basic LTI integration. This allows you to be able to use your content from eduCommons in an LMS. And what does that look like? It looks like, well, first of all, I should mention, this work was done in conjunction with the Meridian Institute. I don't know if Oduro is here or not. There he is. We're working with Oduro Asante. He's doing a startup online higher education institute in Ghana, based on OER and open source, and he needed a solution to be able to create and use OER, at the same time be able to use it with his LMS. So just really quickly, how does it work? Well, I don't have time to show you, but I do have time to show you this. If you see the content in here, this is Canvas, this is an LMS, but you see the content inside of here is actually coming out of eduCommons. And with a few buttons and clicks, you can do that. Now, just to show you, this is the same content, and this is in eTutor. And you can do this in Moodle, you can do this in Blackboard, you can do this in all the other, in any LMS that supports LTI integration. Okay, so really quickly, future. Where are we headed? Well, we're looking at integrating this ability to be able to reuse content from eduCommons in LMSs with more interactive information, things like quizzes and tests and stuff like this. Very exciting prospect. Also, we're looking at eduCommons evolving into an OER content player repository. What it means is, you sat down, you wanted to create your OER, and you just wanted to focus on your content. But somebody else can come along, and by clicking a few buttons and stuff, can actually use that content as if it was a OER repository that was configured just for them in their course. And then, you know, and when you talk about LTI and integrating stuff, everybody always talks about, well, let's integrate an app or a functionality. What we want to do is we want to integrate any content. Okay. That's the end. We're short on time for questions, but if you want to come and talk to me, I'd be happy to tell you more about what eduCommons can do. And I appreciate your attention. Thank you.